Once you find yourself in conflict with a narcissist, it's a virtual guarantee they're going to start playing head games with you. That's why I put together a new course. It's very extensive called Anger Games. I'm going to teach you how to manage anger and conflict with a narcissist. There's a link below that's going to show you how to register, and I hope that you find it to be very insightful. Okay, today I want to tap into some of the strain and frustration that you have in the aftermath of dealing with a strongly narcissistic person. How many times have you walked away from scenarios with that individual thinking, I hate it when they treat me so poorly? Nothing, and I mean nothing, that I think, say, or do is going to make this person any different. They don't get it. They don't understand me. And then you start thinking, how in the world do I just get so suckered into all of their manipulations, and before you know it, I'm not responding in the ways that I like? It's maddening. And of course, when you have this sense of futility and the narcissist knows that you're walking away with futility, in their own perverted way, they take delight in something like that. You see, one of the things that narcissists will do in their maddening kind of way is they gaslight you. Now, let's keep in mind that gaslighting is their way of trying to create dysregulation in you. They especially want you to have doubt about your own validity and the normalcy of who you are. They want you to think of yourself as being somebody who, well, has all sorts of strain and confusion, because it allows them to walk away feeling superior. Now, there's one tactic, hands down, that's their most favorite tactic that they'll use as they gaslight you to create this maddening reaction from you. And that's simply this. Narcissists will provoke you into anger. And then once they've done that, they'll turn around and shame you for feeling angry. Okay? They provoke the anger, then they shame you for having the anger. Does that ever happen? Let me give you a simple illustration. Let's suppose that you're talking with that person maybe that you live with, or someone that you're close to. And as you're sharing your thoughts and your opinions or preferences or plans, they can just come right in and start scoffing at you, or they can belittle you, or they can explain to you how that's not going to work. And they can do it in a harsh and powerful kind of way. And you ask that person to stop. And so what they'll do is they'll turn around and say, every time I try to say something to you, you're just so close-minded. You're the one that's creating all the tension here. And then they flip it around and they say, you're just an impossible person. I'm just trying to help. And that's an illustration. They set up the potential for anger. When you express your frustration, they turn around and say, you're an awful person for feeling that way. Or let's suppose that you're around that individual, again, at family, social work, social or at work or organizations, and that individual is strongly opinionated. They're very forceful and they're very stubborn in the way that they engage. And you might say something like, you and I just are not on the same page. And the tension or strain can be in your tone of voice. And then the narcissist can come back and say, you know what? Every time I try to talk with you about your strong opinions, you just come up with stuff like this. You just can't be pleased, and you're one of the most stubborn individuals I've ever met. Of course, there's a lot of projection there, and it creates this tension on the inside of you. You're the one who's setting it up, but then you shame me for feeling what I feel. Or it may be that you're around that person who's a know-it-all, and they're the micromanager. They're very difficult. And then as they begin to sense that you are not pleased with who they are or how they're treating you, then they'll give you the silent treatment. They'll go very non-cooperative, passive-aggressive. And then as they sense that that's causing a lot of discomfort on the inside of you, it's like, okay, good. They set up the possibility for you to be angry, and then you are shamed for feeling angry. Now, you can see that as I give these kind of illustrations, you could probably add a whole lot more to them, that it's almost impossible to engage in a very highly coordinated way with someone who has raw selfishness and manipulation at the core of their personalities. Now, I want to see if I can point out to you some of the things that you can think, say, or do in response to their gaslighting and setting you up to feel angry. some of the things that you can do that actually play into their very game. And we're going to need to see if we can make some corrections on this, okay? First, one of the things that you're going to be tempted to do when they go into this agitation and provoking is that you want to turn around and point out the inconsistency or the hypocrisy in their life. You might say something like, "Hey, look, if you're talking to me about some things that are wrong about me, let's talk about some of the things you've done." And you can explain to them, "You did this last week, and you say this, but you don't do that." How many times do they come back and say, "Oh, hey, good point there"? No. What it does is it's your way of saying, "I'm jumping into the game with you." They're good at the game, and so it's like, okay, good. I like playing games, psychological games. So when you point out all their hypocrisy, they're just going to flip it right around and turn it back onto you. Now, again, there's another thing that you can do, and you can go historical. And you can point out all the different things in their deep history that might explain why they are so agitated and why they're never happy. And when you go historical on them, then what they're going to do there is they're going to say, "Well, you know what? I've got a history with you. Let me point out all the things from your past that set you up for being inappropriate." Another thing that you can do is you can ask loaded questions. By that, I mean you can say things like, "Why is it always about you?" Or, "Do you realize how off base you really are?" And again, how many times do they come and say, "That's a great question. Thank you for bringing that to my attention." They're not going to do that. When you ask them loaded questions, they've got their own inappropriate answers that they're going to do. All they know is they've set up the scenario for you to be angry. You're playing right along with it, and that's what they're going to focus on. Another way that you can respond when they provoke you in this way is you can collapse emotionally. Some of you might be prone to crying. Others, you might be prone to just a chronic irritability and anxiety and tension. And then as long as you continue on with that collapsed emotion, they think, "Oh, this is working so well for me." Another thing that you can do when they provoke your anger is you can defend yourself too strongly. You might say something like, "Let me explain why I did this and why I'm thinking that way." And as long as you're going into it, it's like the narcissist is thinking, "Well, obviously my opinion means a lot to you because you're trying to make my opinion match yours. I'm just going to continue along with all of this." And so your defense becomes fuel for them to be that much more offensive. Another response that you can have that keeps you in their game with their gaslighting is you can respond to their criticism with your counter criticisms. If they've got something wrong about you, "Well, I can tell you some things that I don't like about you." And again, they're good at that game. They'll win there virtually every time. Another thing that you can do that keeps you stuck in their gaslighting and provocation is you can just kind of stay in a pattern of bickering or carping or agitation and annoyance. You can use sarcasm toward them. "Look at how ridiculous you are. I don't like the way you do this." Because they'll just come back at you with the same thing. Another response that you can give is you can descend into your own bitterness and you can descend into your own contempt. And all that does is it illustrates to the narcissist, "Well, I can see that you're attached to me in this kind of way. And as long as you're having these unhealthy reactions, let's see if I can pour on some more just to prove exactly how correct I am and incorrect you are." Or in addition, you can just try to make excuses and hope that the narcissist is going to buy into whatever explanations that you have. Narcissists, their easiest tactic that they can use to get you in a maddening kind of response is to set up the anger and then shame you for feeling the anger. Now, what is the goal of the narcissist when they use this particular tactic with you? And it's very simple. First, notice the words anger and shame. That's the psychological currency, if you will, that they draw upon. They've been exposed to a lot of anger. They've been exposed to a lot of shame. And so that's what they have to offer you. And so if they can shift their dysregulated emotions and create dysregulation in you, then that takes the focus off of their own internal pain. They want to make, another goal they have is they want to make you responsible for their own miserable life. They've got all sorts of inadequacies, and rather than saying, "I need to take a look at who I am," it's like, "No, you're the issue." In addition, they use this particular tactic because it's their way of punishing you for not being a mini-me. They want you to just mimic who they are. In other words, their opinions and their preferences and all, and just go along with all of their control issues. And when you don't, it's like, well, I've got my ways of dealing with you. And then, in addition, another goal they have is they want to set up a rationale for the hatred that defines them. If they can cause you to look like you're problematic, then it's like, well, you know what? I do have some problems with this person for good reason. And so it allows them to just go on. Narcissists are posers. They're manipulators. They naturally have unstable emotion. And so that's what they have to offer to you. And they have a ton of hurt on the inside. But instead of saying, I need to deal with my hurt, it's like, well, if I can create even more hurt in you, then somehow that makes me the victor. So when you realize that this is their tactic and this is what they're wanting to accomplish, pull back and examine the big picture. Remind yourself, this has been going on in this person's life for a long time, and I need to understand that there's a predictability to this pattern. Beyond that, you also need to take stock of your success rate in trying to get them to see the light. It's probably very low. They don't listen. They don't care about you. That's their low empathy. And then this is hard, you want to go ahead and have a certain anticipation for further episodes of this same nature. In other words, this is a tactic that they'll use over and over. And so each time they do, rather than responding in the same old way, it's like, I'm on to it. And all those other responses that I can have don't work. You want to create as much of a buffer zone between yourself and that individual as possible. In other words, I do not look to this person to be my inner guide, if you will. Individualize your own separate emotional stability. You know, how do I regulate my anger as opposed to letting them establish my pace? How do I regulate the shame that they put on me? Because it's not mine to have to carry. And then make sure you seek support from individuals that are actually healthy. So it's maddening when they set up a scenario for you to be angry and then they turn the anger against you and say, look, you've got some real problems with it, don't you? That's their game, and I'm hoping you can see it and stay out of it. These are unhealthy individuals. They won't take responsibility for themselves, which means you need to go ahead and step back and say, well, I am going to take responsibility for me, and it means I'm going to probably have to distance from you. Now, that videos such as this can give you some good awareness of what you're dealing with. If you haven't already hit that subscribe button, I would encourage you to do so, and I'm so pleased that you allow me to be on the journey with you. I know that when you're dealing with something like this, it may be necessary for you to get some professional assistance. I've been sponsored for years by the people at BetterHelp.com. There's a whole team of licensed professional therapists that can assist you with online therapy. It's very popular and effective. It can be so helpful for somebody to say, let's break this down. Let's talk. There's a good you. Let's see if we can bring that out. Please go through the link and get the assistance that you would need. You know that I have also written and produced video classes. They're very extensive. Each one of my classes has at least 25 videos and lessons, and then each lesson has a written documentation along with guided questions. We have my newest one called Anger Games, how not to get sucked into the anger like I'm talking about here, and I'm very pleased with that class as well as other classes. This is me about establishing boundaries, free to be, finding yourself despite their control, Ready, Set, Connect, how to have healthy connections. We also have my webinars that I presented, 90-minute presentations. All of this is on my website, in addition to our articles and access to the podcast, my books, etc. Narcissists are game players. They're maddening in the way they do it, and they want to gaslight you into thinking you're problematic. The more you can see the game and the tactic, and like I say, this is their favorite, then the more you can say, I'm going to take a pass. I'm not going to give you the predictable response that you're looking for. And in doing so, they may walk away feeling frustrated, but you know what? That's their issue to deal with. I'm hoping instead that you can decide, I'm committed to my own healthiness. And in doing so, I want to be a person of peace that they don't have. I so hope that you can actually find your peace in the midst of their chaos.